And welcome to the Township of Whitewater Region's regular council meeting for Wednesday, March 19th, and we're going to call ourselves to order here at 4:45 p.m. First item on our agenda is our national anthem, but just before we lead into that, I want to say a few words about a community member and then have a moment of silence. So on behalf of council and staff here at the Township of Whitewater Region, we extend our deepest condolences to Jamie Bramberger's family and friends through this difficult time. Renfrew County has lost a valued and dedicated community member, and the township joins in mourning Jamie's passing. We were honored to welcome him as a speaker at last year's Mayor's Business Breakfast, where he represented the labour market group of Renfrew and Lanark. His insightful talk reflected his deep knowledge of the region and its people. Jamie was a tireless advocate for his community and left a lasting mark through his work in education, broadcasting, and economic development. His leadership at Algonquin College created opportunities for students, and his involvement in physician recruitment, business development, and major fundraising initiatives made a meaningful impact, and such that we want to recognize his contribution. So we'll just now stand and face the flag. We'll take a moment of silence for Jamie, and then we'll lead into our national anthem. Next on our agenda is our land acknowledgement, and I'm wondering, Councillor Olmsted, would you be able to provide our land acknowledgement today?
As long as I can get to work home.
You can say Algonquin. We've now changed that.
As we gather, we'd like to acknowledge on behalf of the Township of Whitewater Region and our community that we are meeting on the traditional territory of the Algonquin people. We thank the Algonquin people and express our respect and support for their rich history, and we are extremely grateful for their many and continued displays of friendship. We also thank all the generations of Indigenous people who have taken care of this land for the thousands of years.
Thank you. Next item on our agenda is the adoption of the agenda. The recommendations of the Council of Township of Whitewater Region approve the March 19th, 2025 agenda. Can I get a mover and a seconder? Councillor Warren, our Deputy Mayor. Any changes that anybody would like to propose to the agenda? Good. Seeing none, we'll call for a vote. All those in favor? And it's carried. Next is the adoption of some minutes. First item is our March 5th minutes. So the recommendation is the Council of Township of Whitewater Region approve the regular session and closed session minutes of March 5th, understanding that the closed session minutes remain confidential. A mover and a seconder, please. Moved by Deputy Mayor, seconded by Councillor Olmsted. Any errors or omissions that need to be brought to clerk's attention?
Sorry. You weren't at the last meeting, were you, Councillor Olmsted? Or it was Councillor Bell, I think. Sorry, my fault.
Perfect. Good. So we're good with it. Just to clarify, she was just making sure that those moving and seconding it were in attendance. Any errors or omissions on those minutes? Good, seeing none, we'll call for a vote. All those in favor? It's carried, thank you. Good, next, for information purposes for council and the public, we've attached a set of minutes from our Whitewater Seniors Working Group. These are minutes from their November 4th meeting of last fall. Our senior rep on that working group is Councillor Trim. Is there anything you want to add to what's been provided for council?
I wasn't at that meeting.
Good. I'll flip to your co-chair, Councillor Moore.
Nothing to add, thank you.
Good. And no questions from other members of council? Good. Seeing none, we'll move on. Disclosures. Is there any disclosures of interest that are from any member with respect to today's agenda? I see none. That leads into the next item on our agenda, presentations. We have 2 presentations today. The first one is going to be on the Broomes Creek Culvert and Dam reconstruction. That's our big part of Foresters Falls. And we have a County of Renfrew representative here today, and I believe we're going to get an introduction before he starts.
I'd like to introduce Taylor Hanras. He's the manager of Capital Works with the County of Renfrew, where he oversees the planning and execution of various capital projects, including road and bridges. Taylor, with his background in engineering, has been institutional in enhancing the road network, creating 10-year capital plans, and creating the overall road network, including large culverts and bridges. Welcome.
Excellent. Thank you, Taylor. Floor is yours.
Thank you, Mayor, and through you to Council. Thank you for having me here this evening, and thank you, Lane, for that kind introduction. As Lane said, I'm Taylor. I'm Manager of Capital Works with the County of Renfrew. Here this evening to discuss the reconstruction of C201, Broomes Creek Culvert and associated dam, located in Foresters Falls. So for those who may not be aware, this map illustrates the location of the dam and the structure being reconstructed, just southeast of Foresters Falls, the hamlet of Foresters Falls. So some background. The dam was originally constructed in 1888, and its current configuration was reconstructed in 1935, and it was built at the time to service a mill that was at this location, immediately downstream of the dam. In 2018, the County of Renfrew had commenced a design for the rehabilitation of the culvert that's immediately upstream of the dam, shown in the top right photo on this slide. At the time, the county was not aware of the ownership status of the dam or the responsibility for the dam. Throughout the design process, the consultant we had hired, J.L. Richards and Associates, identified a number of issues with the dam while they were on site investigating our structure, and stated that the dam should be investigated as part of the project as well. So we began investigating responsibility for the dam to see who was responsible for it, given that it was constructed for the mill at the time. We didn't assume that it was part of the county's assets. After a Ontario legal survey to confirm that the dam was located within our right-of-way, we began evaluating options for addressing the dam. So in 2020, we began a municipal class environmental assessment, again led by Jill Richards and Associates, to explore 3 options for the dam. One was do nothing, which was evaluated as not being an option given the poor condition of the dam. The other option was to remove the dam and revert back to a natural state. That option was discontinued after a swath of studies, given the environmental impacts and the impacts on the culture of the local area as well. The dam had been there for over 100 years, so the upstream pond had created a warm water fish habitat, and downstream of the dam, there was a cold water fish habitat. So removal of the dam removes those habitats, and which would be detrimental for the area as well. Additionally, there was high risk if the dam were removed because of lead clay in the area upstream, that as water was drained out, there was potential for erosion and washouts along the stream upstream. So as a result, the third option that was investigated, which was reconstruction of the dam and the structure all in one, was the option that was recommended to proceed. In 2022, we began the design and approval process for that option. It's been a long process. We had to consult with The MECP, MNRF, DFO, the Ministry of Heritage, all as part of the municipal class environmental assessment, and each one had a say in how the detailed design proceeded as well. But late last year, the design was completed. What you see here is a 3D rendering of the design that's proceeded and now been tendered and awarded. So the tender closed on March 6th. We had 7 submissions. It's been awarded to BEI for just under $4.1 million. We've commenced coordinating with the utilities as there is overhead hydro and Bell immediately in the area of the dam, which need to be relocated for the work to proceed. The bridge will be 2 lanes. It'll be 11 meters wide, approximately 12 meters long. It'll have 2 3.5-meter lanes and a 2-meter clear zone on each side of the bridge as well. The barriers on the bridge will be bicyclist height, which is 1.36 meters. The dam itself will be 11 meters wide, about 3.5 meters high from its base, but that ranges based on the level of bedrock. For the construction period, the road will need to be closed at this location for the duration. Unfortunately, with the way the construction has to proceed, there's no means to have a staged construction for it. So on May 5th, it's anticipated construction will commence, which will require the road closure. In August, a new weir will be poured. So the new concrete dam will be a mass concrete weir permanently laid in place. In October of 2025, it is planned to install the prefabricated bridge in place. And in December, early December, it's anticipated the project will be completed. Depending on the weather at that time, there is potential that the asphalt that happens at that time of year would be a sacrificial layer and it would be repaved next year. However, with fingers crossed, if we get good weather into December, we can permanently apply the asphalt and not have to return next year. The complexities of this project, because of the pond upstream being a warm water fish habitat, we can't just remove the dam and allow it to drain. So the cofferdam has to be placed first. It'll be a massive cofferdam encapsulating the whole area, and then a bypass pipe maintaining the level of the head pond will be installed before the project area can be drained of water and all the sediment removed. I'll pause there to ask if there's any questions about the upcoming project, or if there's anything I can answer at all. I'm happy to field them.
Thank you, and we'll open for questions. Councillor Moore.
Just wondering about spring storms and how that culvert will be able to facilitate overflow.
Thank you, Mayor, through you to Councillor Moore. The bypass culvert will be sized for up to a 5-year design flood event. If that is surpassed, it'll have limited cover over top of it, so the contractor may have to coordinate to remove from that area of the site temporarily while flows are passed through, but the overflow would be permitted over top of the pipe if need be. The permanent structure will be sized for a 100-year design flood event, though.
Thank you.
Excellent. Councillor Olmsted.
Thank you, Mayor. Is the new bridge the same width as the old structure?
Thank you, Mayor. Through you to the councillor. No, it'll be wider. So the new bridge will be code compliant to the Canadian Highway Bridge Design Code. So overall, it'll be 11 meters wide. The existing structure, I believe, is just over 8-ish. So it'll be 11 meters wide. It'll have 3.5 meter lanes on each side and a 2-meter clear zone on each side on top of that as well.
Great, thank you.
Good. And Councillor Tabbert.
Yeah, I just need that explained again, how we're going to do this, because I don't understand. That was really fast for me.
Just the timeline,
No,
please.
how you were talking about culverts, and he was talking about the water and.
So the overflow capacity, is that what you're asking?
Well, I'm not sure what I'm asking, but he said he's going to stop the water. And that's what I'm asking. How are you stopping the water?
Perfect. Maybe just the coffer dam explanation, that would probably give some context, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Through you to the councillor. So step one will be putting in the bypass pipe so the water has a place to go. Once the contractor has their bypass pipe in place, they will construct basically a temporary dam along the upstream side of the project area so that they can remove all of the water from around the existing dam and the structure, which will allow them to work in the dry, removing the existing structure, the existing dam, to start reconstruction. As far as the look of the temporary dam, that's up to the contractor, but we do have approvals in place, and it has to be approved by the Ministry of Environment before it can proceed as well.
And it's called a coffer dam?
That's correct.
Good. Any other questions? Yeah, Councillor Bell.
Just as far as the design, so there's you said a 2-meter clear zone on either side of vehicle lanes. Are they going to be painted? There is pedestrian traffic that goes across that bridge. Like, is there going to be any direction as to an appropriate side for the bridge or any markings to direct pedestrians crossing that bridge whenever it's in place?
Thank you, Mayor. Through you to the councillor. So we did have discussions with Lane from your Public Works Department, and there was a request for a multi-use pathway to be continued from Foresters Falls over the bridge. Unfortunately, because of the alignment of the road and the alignment of the structure, it would have been quite costly, approximately over $350,000 to incorporate them up across the structure, whereas the design in question didn't have the additional cost and still had 2 meters on either side. So pedestrian traffic can use either side. It'll have white edge lines identifying that the traffic lanes are in the middle and that the sides are free. It won't be designated a multi-use path per se, but they will have use of it.
Manager of Public Works, did you want to add anything to that?
Yes, this one add on. Yeah, there was a report brought in, I think it's February 20, I think it was last year. Finding that there's 3 options, I believe it was, ranging from 300,000 to 0. And the council decided the best option was to have this 2-meter clear zone on each side.
And just to follow on Councillor Bell's comment, it'll be clearly marked how an individual would transition from the current sidewalk or multi-use path, depending on the side, to this access point along the road.
That's correct. Yeah, and then we're also working with the county when the next phase of County Road 7 gets developed. We'll look at continuing that the active transportation past the bridge.
Perfect. Good. And sorry, did you want to add anything, Taylor? No, you're good. Good. Excellent. And S, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you very much, Mayor. Just one question, and that's the flow of traffic coming through, because with a complete closure, where are they bypassing or how are they coming around to get through that area?
Thank you, Mayor. Through you to the Deputy Mayor. The contractor has not proposed their detour route as of yet, okay. But we will work with Lane in your Public Works Department as well to make sure that it is acceptable to both the county and the township as well.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Tabbert?
I just thought of something. What about children in the middle of the summer wanting to go to the park there? They can't? Will there be a walkway somewhere or anything like that?
Thank you, Mayor. Through you to the councillor. Unfortunately, we will not be able to maintain pedestrian traffic over the structure. It'll be a very busy construction site closed off to everyone. To get access to the ballpark on the other side, they would have to follow the detour route to get there.
Yes, Councillor Tabbert.
Now I'm concerned with kids being kids. I mean, they're going to try somehow to get across. I mean, do we need to be worried about this at all in any capacity?
Maybe we can just comment on that kind of safety plan for the work site.
Yes, so the work site will be completely fenced off with construction fencing. There will be a requirement that it be closed off at the end of each day to make sure that people can't access, and there'll be barriers up at each end so that vehicles can't access as well.
I think one of the key parts here that I'm hearing from members is just be that communication piece on the detour, the duration of the build, you know, how do they access their park? We'll just have to make sure. I know county has a responsibility to make sure that information is passed, but I think in relation to the township as well, we have our current and other ways to contact individual members of the community. So that'll help pass that information along. Good. And Councillor Moore?
One other thing to you, Mr. Mayor, July 1st parade.
Excellent point. And I'm going to go over to our manager of community services, and we're going to have to make sure that we initiate that discussion very early on with Foresters Falls. Good. Good. Thank you. Excellent point. That'll be a very short parade. Okay. Thank you. Any other comments or can? Any other questions for Taylor and his team here? Yes, please, CAO.
I'm not sure if are you finished your presentation, Taylor? Yeah, okay. So the one question I had for you, just out of curiosity, is at the beginning of your presentation, you mentioned that the dam is in the right-of-way of the county road. Have you had experience where the dam would not be in the right-of-way? And in those instances, who is, in fact, the owner of a dam that is outside of the right-of-way within a water course?
Thank you, Mayor, through you to Council. That one would require a legal opinion. The county, on this instance, had to seek that. We were of the impression that it was not our asset. However, once it was confirmed that it was completely located within our right-of-way, we were basically told that because it's on our property, it's our asset.
Good. Any other questions? No, I just would recognize 4.1 million. Is that what the total cost is? It's a significant investment. The last investment, as was kind of presented to us, was 1935. Almost 90 years ago. So I hope we get that many years and more out of this. This is an example of where the county portion of our property taxation, this rubber meets the road in this project. And it's going to be a short-term impact, 5th of May to 5th of December, should the timeline all come together. But hopefully that'll be the only impact on the community for the next 100+ years. Excellent. Is that no other questions? Thank you so much for making time to come and visit us today, and we really appreciate you sharing this information with us.
Thank you all for the opportunity to present. If there are any questions that arise, please feel free to reach out. We're happy to answer any questions that may pop up. And for the traffic impacts this summer.
Yeah, it's worth it. It's worth it. Excellent. And we get a double header today from County of Renfrew. So next up, we're going to get a presentation about the Beachburg Tract, and that tract is a fancy word I've learned. It's the forest in Beachburg, and I think we have our manager of community services is going to do a quick introduction. But Lacey, you can come on up if you want.
Thank you, Mayor. County of Renfrew Forester Lacey Rose has been employed with the County of Renfrew for over a decade, presently serving as the County Forester. Lacey has been recognized for expertise and commitment to the forestry sector. Lacey is a Bachelor of Science in Forestry, graduated at the University of New Brunswick, and made her move to the Ottawa.
So welcome, and we look forward to hearing all about our forest.
Thanks for the introduction, and thanks for having me here tonight. I'm going to just start out with a quick overview of what is the Renfrew County Forest. Basically, there's 53 different tracts. As Mayor Nicholson said, that means each different forest property we call a different tract. We manage those according to our 10-year forest management plan, which was approved in February 2017 by County Council. And that's about to expire in a couple of years, so I'm already starting the rewrite process of that. So there's about 6,500 hectares spread out over those different tracts, and most of those were purchased in the 1960s through what was known as the Agreement Forest Program. And that was a grant program by the provincial government that covered up to 75% of the purchase price. If a private property was wanting to be sold by the landowner, someone would evaluate it. If it was better suited for reforestation purposes, meaning that there was farm fields there that weren't very productive, then the county could apply to that grant program to help fund the purchase price and then plant trees and convert that failed farm field back to a forest. So that agreement and the funding ended like in the 70s, but the M&R actually managed these properties until the year 2000, after which time the county took over the management responsibility. So 17% of our current forest is in red pine plantations, and those are almost entirely in those abandoned farm fields. A very high percentage, 35%, is in low-value poplar and mixedwood, which are notoriously hard to sell, and most of that is kind of a result of at the time, people, before they would sell their land, they would see the opportunity to harvest what they could, and now we have kind of an even-aged forest starting in the 1960s, which didn't have a lot of regeneration management at that time. We are FSC certified and SFI certified. That means that if you flip over your junk mail envelope and you see a little symbol on it, it means that the paper comes from a responsibly managed forest, which could include Renfrew County Forest. It also means that we're independently audited every year by someone who is not associated with us, who comes to make sure that we are managing the forest in a sustainable way. This is, all the red are the different tracts, and I circled the ones in your municipality, which are the Beachburg and Little Lakes tracts. And I'm not going to read all of this to you, but I just wanted to give you a feel for what do we do as Renfrew County Forest staff. There's just two of us, myself and a forestry technician. Our primary goal is to manage the forests that are owned by the county, and that's from start to finish. So we do harvest tenders every year. We do all the work in-house to get the areas ready for that. And then, making sure we're protecting all the values and everything in there, and then supervising the harvest operation after we do a competitive tender process. And then all of the follow-up work that comes after you harvest a forest is also a big part of our job. We are very fortunate to have the privilege to do education and outreach to schools, to the public, lots of people with their forest health inquiries throughout the year, and we do also work with research partners from time to time. We do advocacy on behalf of the forest industry, and from, again, scattered time to time, we do forestry services to municipalities as a fee for service, and one of those I'll talk about a bit later, which was for your municipality 10 years ago. So I'm going to focus in on the Beachburg tract because it's where a lot of action's been happening, and we get a lot of questions about that. Been putting a lot of work in there. So it is actually the first Renfrew County Forest tract, which will be celebrating its 75th anniversary next year. 2006, purchased in 1951. The total area is 252 hectares. That was acquired over several purchases in the 50s. 110 hectares of that is in plantations. So it's been actively managed since it was purchased. I look back in the archives, and the first harvest was in 1962 in the natural forest. And the plantations, once they get to about the age of 30, 35, they go into a bit of a rotation schedule where we harvest the worst trees first, about a third with each thinning, and that happens every 10 to 15 years typically. We have good relationships, from my perspective, with Borca, with the Snowmobile Club, and with the Whitewater region staff and elected, hopefully. You can tell me more about that later. We do a lot of tours in this area. It's what I consider to be our gem of the county forest. It's one of my happy places where I'm really proud to show off what we've done there. So there's been multiple public tours, lots of students and forestry professionals from all over Canada have been there in the last few years to see the work we've been doing. We're also very fortunate that we got new signage in 2024 thanks to a generous donation by Precision Textiles, who some staff and I think the owner frequent that area almost daily. So there's a lot of public investment in that area. So what you have, if you go to that area, the thing that you would have noticed in the last few years is that we did do what some people would consider a shocking harvest visually in 2022, 2023. And what most people probably would not remember is that that area was actually harvested in the 90s in a very similar way. But at that time, there was no investment in the renewal process. So there was no white pine growing back underneath that, the big towering white pines that are still there now. And the trees that were left behind were showing a lot of decline. And if you've been out on a tour with me, you would have seen me pointing to white pine that are kind of leaking white sap. That's called blister rust. A lot of the big mature trees were dying. And with no white pine regeneration underneath, without us taking action, people 150 years from now would not have big white pine to enjoy in that area. That's the part of forest management. We suppress fires, so that's a required process for a forest to renew itself. We did make some pretty good revenue from that harvest, though, about $4,000 a hectare, but we'll be spending more than half of that in an attempt to grow pine back. So since the harvest, we have done mechanical site preparation, and that means that all of the treetops and undersized stems that were left behind were kind of scattered all over. The goal of mechanical site prep is to create the most plantable spaces that you can in that land. So we want to align the slash, kind of make smaller and some larger piles so that the tree planters, when they come, have more space to plant trees. Immediately after we finished that, in the spring of 2024, we could see vigorous resprouting of poplar regeneration and that's expected. This is all normal practice when you're renewing a white pine forest, and this is a very common practice in the Great Lakes St. Lawrence, and I have lots of colleagues that I was calling on for their advice in this, and we have also completed similar treatment packages in other areas of the county forest. So because of the vigorously sprouting competition, again, we're planning to plant trees here, we had to do a chemical site preparation treatment in 2024, and that was done using backpack applicators by a licensed contractor. And so that was leading us up to this summer coming, where we are planting 43,000 trees in that area that was harvested. We do anticipate that we will need to do an additional tending in a couple years because everything grows faster than pine and they do need light to survive. So we have to keep helping them to make sure that that part of the forest is maintained in pine. This is actually the nicest pine site we have in all of our county forest land bases. So to allow it to just regenerate to poplar is not the right thing for the forest. So why would we spend all this money? Like I said, it's an important ecosystem for this area. It's the right thing to do from a forestry perspective and a forest lover's perspective. And this one profit harvest is still worth more than if we just let it go to poplar and red maple. That's how much more valuable pine forests are for lumbering and making into all kinds of forest products. So I knew that this was going to be a tough one. I actually wrote the prescription 10 years before we did the harvest, and I was too afraid to pull the trigger on this. However, I womaned up in 2020 and started doing public consultation on this. I met with Borka on site to kind of give them an intro to what we were planning. We continued to provide information to them, to Snow Country, to the township over multiple email updates with our plans. In 2022, I started a Renfrew County Forest Facebook page for this purpose, because I knew there'd be a lot of public questions, and just, information overload. We put an information sign at the parking lot to let the public know why we were doing what we were doing and what stage we were at. We did a public tour in 2022, which was well attended. And also, during the harvest, the amount of time that we as staff spent opening and closing trails to try to maintain options for people. I know how much people love this area and that they go there sometimes 2 times a day. And the alternative was to close the entire area, which would have been easier for us. But we decided to do what we could. And as long as people respect the closures, that's what we will always try to do. We want to work with the community to make sure that everybody has a place to walk and bike. So in 2023, the same, we did a tour, we met with Borka, we were providing updates, again, the temporary closures of some trails. And also something we had discussed with Borka in 2020 was the fact that there's so many trails in this area, like a very high concentration of trails. It would have significantly reduced the amount of trees we could have planted if we protected all of them. So they prioritized the ones that were most important to them, and when the new trees are established, they're welcome to make new trails there. But in the meantime, subtracting all that space from the managed area would really have had an impact. And again, 2024, did another public tour, updated signage, and some more temporary closures. And the parking lot was also upgraded in 2024, thanks to our friends in Public Works at the county. So more to come. In 2025, like I mentioned, we're going to be planting trees. Some of the plantation areas, the ones in purple on the map, actually will also be thinned. I've been keeping close contact with Borka. We always put a timing restriction in any harvest in this tract so that we won't impact the spring chicken run, which we know is their event of the year. So imagine being a harvest contractor and getting the news that you can't work for a week because there's going to be a bike race. But that's balance, and that's why we make these kinds of restrictions to try to balance the recreation, social, and economic values. In 2026, I'm going to be gearing up for another giant PR exercise where we will be implementing something very similar in the blue area to what you have seen in the green area. There's a lot of blister rust happening there now. It will be getting to the point, if we don't do something soon, that there will be a lot of hazards in that area. Next time you walk through there, if you walk there, I would invite you to look up. You'll see a lot of yellowing tops, a lot of dead white pine. So we need to take action to try to get that forest growing again. Unfortunately, there's a really heavy understory there, and it's going to be an extra challenge. And in 2027, the Little Lakes plantations will be up. It will have been 14 years since we thinned those, and definitely time to get in there again. So just a quick overview of some of the challenges we face in Renfrew County Forest, including these ones. Invasive species, huge growing concern, natural spread and human spread, people dumping garden waste in the forest. That happens a lot at the Beachburg Tract. As a result, we have all kinds of weird plants growing there that shouldn't be there, including locust, periwinkle. I think someone dumped like a package or two of like random flower seeds, and now there's like things that shouldn't be there growing all over the cut area. So that's not great for natural diversity. Garbage dumping, I get complaints sometimes about things dumped there. Actually, one time we rented a dumpster and had the forwarder, like the person who picks up the logs and brings them to the landing, he helped us by picking up couches and appliances and everything and putting them in the dumpster. So that's obviously not ideal. Climate change impacts. This was an area that was impacted by the ice storm. I don't remember what year it was, maybe last year? Year before, last year? Okay, so there was a lot of trees that snapped off there, but luckily not as many as could have. And also the balancing of values, so not just recreation values, but species at risk timing restrictions, not specifically in this area, but in most of our harvests, we have like a 5-month timing restriction where they're not allowed to operate because of different species at risk. So just switching gears for the last slide of your forest. So the Whitewater region does own forest properties surrounding your pit. In 2014, the current council did request the county to manage that land on their behalf on a fee-for-service basis. At that time, a forest operation prescription was prepared and delivered in October of that year, and there was a poplar-dominated area that was eligible for harvest. So tree marking and some boundary layout was complete in early 2015, and then the information was provided to the township to carry out the tender or request the approval and information for us to carry it out on their behalf. And just touch base again in 2016. I don't believe that ever happened. I have not returned to the property, but I just wanted to highlight to you that there is management potential on one of your properties. It's been 10 years since I've been there, so I can't speak to its current condition. But yeah, I just wanted to give you a little bit of information about that. And that concludes my presentation. Thank you for your time.
Awesome. Thank you, Lacey. With that, we'll open it for questions. Any members of council, questions? Yes, Councillor Tavert.
If you go back 2 slides, I'm just curious as to what is that red stuff on the trees there?
On the ground, you mean?
Is that on the ground? Looks like a tree trunk.
That's another picture.
Through you, Mayor, to
Yeah,
council.
I know.
Yeah, so that's a beech tree, and that is beech bark disease, which is one of many invasive species problems. It's actually two different things happening there. So there's a little aphid-like insect that makes little holes in the bark, and then a specific fungus arrives via rain, birds, etc., and takes up residence in the little holes and then girdles the tree from the inside. So Shaw Woods actually had to do a salvage on the old growth trail because there was so much beech bark disease there. I have not observed it yet in the Beachburg Tract, but in most of our areas, we're in like a salvage position now. When we go in there, there's almost all dead from this disease.
Just one more question. You had said that we can't have as many trails as we did. You're going to be cutting them down or not cutting them, stopping them for now, and then they'll go back or for the trees to grow. What if people, and I know there are a few people who do this, I'm guilty, of just meandering. Would we hurt the plantation at all if we just meandered around? Or I'm not sure. Like, are we talking seedlings or seeds? Or just curious about that.
Through you, Mayor, to the councillor. Great question. So normally, all Renfrew County forests are open for public use and you can go where you want. There was one other area we planted in the last 10 years that we were having problems with ATVs, four-wheelers, and people kind of like trampling the seedlings. They're this big when they get planted. So we will likely put up some signs saying like, young forest, please stay on trail, just until they become established, because they're just like pretty delicate at that age and they get planted in a little jiffy plug, and they need to establish their roots, and dogs might pick them up and pull them out and things like that. Like that might still happen. We are going to request the planters to keep like a 2-meter distance from the original blue trail, which is like the most used one through there, so that you don't end up in a situation where you need to prune those branches in like 4 years. So we want to make sure that the trail has enough space, but also that we can get as many trees in as we can.
Any other questions from members of council? Good. I have one question. Seed bank. You had mentioned before in a presentation about a seed bank in Whitewater region. Can you tell us what that is and where it might be?
So there is on Crown land, very near the Little Lakes Tract, it's a seed orchard that is, it's Crown. It's managed by the Ottawa Valley Forest. And what that means is that there were seedlings grown from what were considered to be like the best specimens that could be found of white pine. So they started them in a nursery and then they planted them in a field there, and they've grown and they get pruned so that they stay short and they produce cones that can be easily collected and then brought to a nursery to grow. So some of ours might be coming from there because we buy our seed from Ottawa Valley Forest. We're also planting 25% of the seed stock will be from a southern seed zone as climate change insurance, because we know that we're going to be in a warmer condition in 80 years when these trees are mature. And also 25% will be from a blister rust resistant or best bet seed source. So that's like just one of the tools that are used to regenerate forests around here, but it's important to know like where your seed is coming from, and you're lucky to have a local seed source.
The things you learn. I can't thank you enough for coming here today. Sorry, I should offer, is there any staff that want to ask a question? Yes, CAO.
If you'll allow me, at the beginning of your presentation, you spoke about the agreement forest program, how you guys acquired the lands. I was curious to know if there's any limitations on alternative uses of the properties. Just curious if there's opportunities to examine other uses other than forestry uses. Thanks.
Through you, Mayor. So the deal is that the lands are to be kept as forests and managed for forestry purposes. There have been instances historically where areas have been severed out for like dumps and stuff and sold to municipalities. They can't be sold for like someone to build a cottage or something like that. But in that case, the province has to approve it and they have to be paid back for the current land value of 75% of that piece of land.
Doesn't trigger any other questions? Good. I just want to reiterate how important the forest is, and for Whitewater region to have our Beachburg Tract, and to now understand how much time and effort goes into its management to make sure it's not there just for us to be able to use now, but 100 years from now. And to do so, and still you're making a profit. Great to see, and wonderful to have that kind of management. So thank you for taking the time to come today and share this, and the amount of effort you made in terms of public engagement with us. Thank you. And if we can support you in any other way, please reach out. I'll be curious. I'm curious about the 2016 parcel of our own property, but we'll follow that up offline. Good. Thank you so much, Lacey.
Thanks. You know where to find me if anyone has any more questions. Thanks.
Good. And just, we had a presentation last week from Muskrat Watershed, and they were talking about planting trees, and with Lacey about working together on future plantings that might happen in the watershed. So that's a very positive outcome. Good. Just before we move on, I also want to recognize we have another member in the audience. So Mr. Jason Davies has traveled here today He is the director, I got that right, director of development and planning at the county. And one of his responsibilities is forestry, so he's here in support of Lacey and, of course, as well as Taylor. But we just thank Jason for making the time to come out and for all that you do to make sure that, we're supported here in Whitewater. So thank you so much.
Thanks.
Good. With that, we're going to move on in our agenda. Do not feel obliged to stay here and listen. Go home and enjoy your evening, and we'll connect again soon. Thank you for your time.
Thanks. It was great seeing you all again. Take care.
Excellent. Okay, next we are on to item number 7. And I emailed myself my mayor's address, and then I got 50 emails, so I had to scroll back to find it here. Excellent. I hope everyone had an opportunity to enjoy March break, even though many of us don't have kids in school anymore and aren't necessarily breaking over March break, although maybe some of us. There is grandkids, I've been reminded, you're hosting grandkids over March break, but there's also so many activities in the community. So I hope everybody had a good break, or at least was able to enjoy it in some way with family, or attend one of our many St. Paddy Day celebrations or breakfasts. I also wanted to highlight, we received quite a bit of rain last week, Sunday in particular, between 4 and 6 p.m. I think it was. And it created a number of washouts on our road, and I just wanted to make a big thanks to our staff for all their efforts to make our roads safe and open to the public so quickly after that incident on Sunday. Since our last council meeting on March 5th, I attended 11 meetings and events on behalf of council, and I'll just highlight a couple for you and the residents. The first continue to speak about the tariffs and the U.S. implementing additional tariffs or threatening tariffs on a number of our Canadian exports. There is going to be an impact both on our businesses and our residents, and we're working closely with the County of Renfrew on their Buy Canadian municipal procurement opportunities and are supporting the Buy Local plan. You'll see a resolution later on in our agenda, a resolution of support, where council will have the opportunity to discuss this and have its own initiatives if it feels so. So that'll come up later today. I just also wanted to highlight that I had the opportunity to attend the Seniors Active Living Fair on March 6th, and it was an incredible event for our seniors and caregivers. There was lots of folks from across Whitewater region in attendance, and the value of the presentations was really good. I want to acknowledge our 2 staff members, Julie and Lisa, for all their work on this event and for all the other supports that they coordinate day to day here in the community. A fun fact, and I shared this with the audience at the Seniors Active Living Fair, is that Julie and Lisa are funded, their wages are funded completely through provincial and federal dollars. No property tax dollars goes towards this tremendous asset that we have in our community, and I can't go without acknowledging both the province and the federal government for their support, to support our seniors, and to be able to have 2 employees like Lisa and Julie. I also wanted to highlight all the many volunteers who do much for our seniors from our council's working group. We have Bonnie, Moira, Gwen, and Ted, plus councillors Moore and Trim. And there are many more who donate their time organizing, delivering meals on wheels, visiting, driving seniors, to name just a few of the services that they provide. So thank you to everyone for making the difference, and the fair was an awesome opportunity for them to connect with more of our residents. International Women's Day was celebrated on March 8th, and Councillor Tabbert represented Whitewater Region at the Upper Ottawa Valley Chamber of Commerce events on March 7th. She may share a few words later in announcements about the event, but I also want to take the opportunity to make sure that we recognize and celebrate women and girls' achievements across so many aspects of our community. As the rain this past weekend quickly reminded everyone, it's that time of year when many of our residents are starting to watch the water levels in the Ottawa River. And freshet is what it's called. And when we see the huge watershed of the Ottawa River begin to melt and flow into the Ottawa, our regional freshet meetings have begun, and our CEMC, our clerk, has been attending those. And we are at the table to monitor these river levels, the weather forecast, and to assess the potential impact on our community. There will be more updates as more information starts to become available, and they'll be shared as they come available. But please watch ottawariver.ca, our own township social media pages, as well as our webpage for up-to-date information. So we'll continue to share that, and I'll offer updates as they become available. Last is that October 2nd, coming just around the corner, is World Autism Day, an opportunity for positive action and advocacy for those diverse members of our community. So we're going to fly the autism flag on October 2nd and celebrate autistic people and helping to bring light to the systematic barriers that must be removed to create a more supportive and inclusive community. And did I say that wrong?
You said October.
Oh. We're going to fly it on April 2nd.
Good job.
Thank you. I don't know why it says April. Anyway.
I was reading it. Where did you get that?
Yeah, this is what happens. Good. That ends my mayor's report. Nice ending. Is there any questions or comments from members of council? Anything I wanted to say? Councillor Tabbert.
Made me a little nervous when you said just around the corner and then you said October 2nd.
Good. Anything else? Excellent. Okay, well, we're going to carry on then. Thank you. Next item is public comments, and I'll just ask the clerk, is there any public comments received for any of the agenda items on today's agenda?
We received none.
Excellent, thank you. So we're going to jump right into reports. The first one is 9.1, and it's the discussion about a replacement of a fire vehicle. The recommendation is that the Council of the Township Whitewater Region provide the Chief Administration Officer delegated authority to authorize an expenditure greater than $25,000 as per Section 5.1 of the procurement policy to purchase a new cab truck to a maximum of the allocated budget of $70,000, inclusive of non-refundable HST. A mover and a seconder, please. Moved by Councillor Tabbert, seconded by Councillor Moore. And is this going to the Fire Chief? Yes, Fire Chief, please.
Thank you. So a little bit of background about this vehicle. The former vehicle 9851 was removed from service approximately 18 months ago due to unsustainable repair costs, mainly transmission issues, and it really wasn't well suited for the needs of the department. 9851 is used for a variety of roles, including as a command post to help transport firefighters, and more importantly now than ever to be used for moving contaminated gear to reduce exposure of our firefighters to carcinogens. So tender 2025-10 was for the purchase of a half-ton truck. It was released on February 7, 2025 and closed on March 5th, same year. One bid was received and it was a budget. And I should note that that budget was to be to include the emergency lighting, radio, and siren. So a little bit of analysis here. Section 5.1 of the procurement policy delegates the ability to incur actual expenditures to township staff, but requires council approval for expenditures above the $25,000, which is obviously the case. So we did issue the tender appropriately with only one non-acceptable bid received. It appears that there's a lot of competition for vehicles, probably a little bit of uncertainty with tariffs and things like that. It doesn't appear that dealerships really want to bid on these. As such, staff are recommending that we proceed with the acquisition through request for quotation, established in the policy to ensure competitive purchases and accountability. Therefore, a minimum of 3 quotes will be required on an invitational basis. I would like to note that the $70,000 is set aside in this year's budget. With that, I'll just turn it over for questions.
Excellent. Thank you, Fire Chief. And I'll go to my mover first, Councillor Tabbert. Any comments or questions?
Not at this time.
Good. And the seconder, Councillor Moore.
Just want to confirm that the mechanic was in on this and that he's in favor of the suggested purchase.
Yeah, that's correct. They review any of our tenders before we put them out, particularly with anything regarding, engine, transmission, things like that.
Great, thank you.
Good. Any other questions from any other member of council? Good. Just before we vote, a comment I'll make is that I think this is an appropriate, I think this is an excellent approach. We've got a tender that came in, a very complicated tendering process. The tender disqualified because it's over the amount we're prepared to spend. So to stay in budget, they're proposing an alternative request for quotation. I think that's an excellent initiative, and hopefully we'll ensure that we can get the vehicle, but within the budget. Doesn't trigger any other comments or questions? Yes, Councillor Olmsted?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Is any of the safety products, can they be transferred from the old truck to the new truck, like the lighting and some stuff that may have added to the increased cost of this vehicle?
Fire Chief?
No, the lighting was actually in pretty bad shape, to the point it was being held together with some tape. The radio we've since removed and put in a different truck, and the siren, again, very old and not working very well.
Thank you.
Good. Any other questions or comments? Okay, I'll call the question then. All those in favor? And it's carried. Done. Thank you. Next item on the agenda, 9.2, has to do with the arena structural condition assessments. Arenas. The recommendation is that the Council of Township Whitewater Region approve the award of tender 2025-03 Arenas Structural Condition Assessment to Gen Tech at a cost of $13,155.46, inclusive of non-refundable HST. A mover and a seconder, please. Moved by Councillor Bell, seconded by Councillor Trim. Good. Community Manager, Community Services? Yes?
Thank you, Mayor. So part of the capital budget for 2025, we were down. And, sideways. So we put out the the RFP, and it was to include all 3 Whitewater Region arenas, so Beachburg, Westmeath, and Cobden. The assignment included assessing each of the arenas, including a site visit. We mandated that the inspections inside required the use of a lift, outside required the use of a drone to provide photos up top, and that each individual arena would get its own individualized report. So 35 RFP documents were picked up from the date of issue, and the 15 proposals were returned on the date of closing. The proposals ranged from $13,000 to $114,000. Questions were received, and one addendum was issued on February 20th. So the proposals were received and evaluated by myself, Treasurer McGonigal, and Community Services Superintendent Al Griffiths, and also reviewed by Councillor Bell. Each proposal was scored individually and was averaged to determine the final score out of the 100 marks, so you see the breakdown in the report. The awarded company goes to Gemtech and their submission. So Gemtech is a Canadian company, employee-owned, based out of Canada, as well as has offices in Ottawa, including Petawawa. So just as a side note, they did have some knowledge of some internal facilities that was nice to read in their report. But just as we would go ahead and, based on the scores, award the tender to them. So if there's any questions? Oh, sorry, one more note. The financial amount that was budgeted was $60,000. And as a side, we'd like to return to council in the future with what we would like to see used with the additional funding left relating to recreation and or community services. So we're only using $13,155. So we're proposing that we're going to come up with another capital project that didn't get funding in 2025 to use the remaining funds for that. But we didn't want to rush into that decision, so we're going to go through that as staff and return to council with the report.
Excellent, thank you. And I'll go to my mover first, Council Bell.
Yeah, thanks. I had a look through the tender response from Gemtech, and it looks like they have significant history with doing these types of assessments, and quite impressed reading through that. Very impressed with the $13,000 budget on that as opposed to $60,000, and I know there was a number of projects that went unfunded this year from Recreation, so I'm in complete support of this.
Excellent, thank you. And Councillor Trim, the seconder?
Yes, I'm very happy that the price came in so reasonable, and I'm just wondering if, when we see the reports, there might be something critical that needs to be urgently fixed, and maybe some of the surplus funds could be used for that as a consideration. I know there's unfunded projects, but I don't know what this report will show, and maybe we should, before we spend that, receive the report and see if there's maybe something that needs to be attended to right away as a result of the reports. That's just a suggestion, Mr. Mayor.
Good, thank you, Councillor Trim. Any comments from staff on that suggestion?
No, and part of the reason why we weren't in a rush to make any decisions as to what comes next.
Perfect, thank you. Any other questions from members of council? Yes, Councillor Olmsted.
Just a comment. I think this is probably the most responses I've ever seen for a request for proposal, like 15. And I did read that we did it through Bendigo. Any advice as to why we received so many RFPs? I mean, I'm used to seeing like 3 to 5 at max. In 10 years, I've never seen 15.
I wouldn't have an answer for you, and I don't. As far as I know, we didn't, sorry, I can say we didn't receive any besides through Bid-and-Go. So they all came from that service.
Wow, impressive. Thank you.
Excellent. Any other questions, comments from members of council? Okay, seeing none, we'll call for the vote. All those in favor? And it's carried. Thank you. Good, and with that, we'll just have a short recess here for a few minutes. And welcome back to the Township Whitewater Region's regular council meeting for Wednesday, March 19th. We're just going to call ourselves back to order here at 5:52 p.m. Next on our agenda, we have 3 items that I'm going to group together just for a moment. 9.3 and 9.4 speaking about drinking water, the reports, and the water quality management system endorsement. And 9.5 speaks to the Cobden Wastewater Treatment Plant annual report. As part of these 3 reports, we've asked 2 guests to come here and help augment the information for council. And I'm just going to ask our Superintendent Nicholson to introduce our 2 guests so that we have some context over the next 3 agenda items.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So tonight we have with us Ashley Pilgrim and Kaylee Sarr from Ontario Clean Water Agency, also known as Aqua. So I will jump in on the first, actually I guess you have to read the recommendation first. So I will pass the report off to Ashley and Kaylee once we get to that point.
Excellent. So you may hear 2 new voices, and that will be Ashley and Kaylee. Yes. Perfect. Okay, so we're going to jump in then. 9.3 is the annual drinking water reports. The recommendation is that the Council of Township Whitewater Region receive the 2024 annual reports for the following drinking water systems: Beachburg Drinking Water System, Cobden Drinking Water System, and Haley Drinking Water System. Can I get a mover and a seconder, please? Moved by Councillor Moore, seconded by Councillor Olmsted, and then I will hand it over to Superintendent Nicholson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Tonight, the annual reports that have been prepared for the system owner, which is the township. These reports were prepared for the system owner as well as for the Ontario Ministry of Environment. And these reports are to be made available to the public as well at their request. And these reports meet the requirements of several aspects of the OREG 17003 and OREG 38704. So Aqua is our accredited operating authority for each of the 3 water systems in Whitewater, the Beachburg, Cobden, and Haley drinking water systems. And so one of the items that's key is that I mentioned that the report is available for residents, users of the system to be able to access. So while there is a requirement that larger municipalities over 10,000 people make the report available online, while we don't have that requirement, we still do it. So after the meeting, each of the reports will be posted online, available for the public to review. So the annual reports provide a brief description of the water system, as well as things like the treatment chemicals used, and it summarizes the test results that were received for the year, as well as any other information that's required under the Act. So I'll steal a little bit of the thunder and discuss the treated water usage for the year for each of the locations, and then I'll pass it over to Ashley and Kaylee. So the first number I'd like to mention for the Beachburg drinking water system, so the maximum daily treated flow that we saw from that system was 762 cubic meters a day, which represented 78% of the capacity that's permitted under our license, and had an average daily flow of 369 cubic meters a day, which represented 38%. And the Cobden drinking water system had a maximum daily flow of 919 cubic meters, or 70%, and an average daily flow for the year in 2024 of 42%. And lastly, the Haley drinking water system had a maximum daily flow of 27% and an average daily flow of 11% usage. So just to give you an understanding of the capacity, how much the system is being used. So with that, I will pass it over to Ashley and Kaylee to provide a few more details on what they saw over the year.
Thank you. Jumping right into things, I'm going to follow the order presented by Deanna, starting with Beachburg, moving into Cobden, and then Haley. This is the 3rd year you guys have seen these reports, so I'm going to skip over our system description and get right into the meat of the report. Looking at Beachburg, we did have one inspection with the Ministry of the Environment where we received a rating of 100%. We also had an external audit completed by Intertech or SII Global where no nonconformances were identified with our quality management system. We did have one adverse water quality incident, and that was experienced in January with the sodium exceedance, if you guys remember. We also had one non-compliance event where we had a permit to take water exceedance. So these are detailed throughout the report. We also had 3 water main breaks that are detailed in the report. Looking at our permit to take water exceedance, it was a result of a pump being left in manual. Typically only 3 of the 4 well pumps run, and with 4 running at the same time, it's enough to pull more than what our permit is required. So that was reported to the ministry. And the corrective actions from there were to make an SOP to identify that only 3 should be running at a time. You'll notice that spike indicated in the dug well maximum flow rates on page 4. And any other spikes in the drilled well were a result of spikes on pump startup. So it's not uncommon that we see kind of a rush of air that skews the results on the pump start, and it's not an accurate representative of what we were pulling from the well at that time. Results throughout Beachburg were fine. There was no indication of E. coli or total coliforms found in our treated water distribution system. Operationally, everything is similar to previous years, as well as our inorganic and organic parameters. We did test for lead in the distribution system. We're on a 3-year rotation in Beachburg, so we won't be doing that for the next 2 years. And that takes us into the additional legislated samples. So based on our municipal drinking water license, we have to take a quarterly sample of the backwash wastewater that's headed into Jackson Lake. And there's limits in the municipal drinking water license that we've remained below. The annual average of 25 milligrams per liter per total solids was not met. We only had 9.5 milligrams per liter as an average, though we did meet the average of 0.2 milligrams per liter for total chlorine. Looking at our major maintenance, a lot of the stuff completed was gearing up, I guess, for our big overhaul of the plant this year. We had the backwash tank cleaned and inspected. We replaced some portable turbidimeters for in-house testing, and there was some work done to the generator. In the distribution system, we had 3 water main breaks as discussed, one on Caroline Street, where blue brute plastic pipe was replaced. There was one on Beachburg Road, where we had a band installed, a second on Beachburg Road where a valve was replaced, and there is a typo in the report, which I will be issuing revision for before it's posted to the website. The first Beachburg Road reference in August should actually be 3 Stewart Street in Beachburg. There was a water main repair done there on an inch and a quarter line. We did receive 4 complaints in Beachburg, 2 with colored water, 1 with water in the roadway, which led to that valve replacement on Beachburg Road, and then 1 with high pressure in the system. And that was isolated to 1 home. That takes us into Cobden. Similar to Beachburg, we had 1 ministry inspection with a rating of 100%. 1 reaccreditation audit with SII Global, where no minor or major nonconformances were identified. We had 3 adverse water quality events and 2 non-compliance events, as well as 1 water main break. Looking into the adverse incidents, 1 was a result of total coliforms found in the distribution system. In this instant, we had to resample above and below where the total coliform was noted, and our resample showed 0. We did have a coagulant feed failure as a result of a check valve of 1 of our chemical pumps that failed, so when that was identified, it was immediately repaired. And then our THM running annual average exceedance was over in Q3 of last year, and has since been underneath the running annual average maximum of 100 micrograms per liter. Again, similar to Beachburg, we had 2 permitted to take water exceedances. 1 was a result on pump startup. When it was noticed, the pump was shut down and reset, and it operated correctly. And the second was done intentionally to reset a filter backwash error, and those were both reported to the ministry. Those events are also detailed in our maximum flow rate section, and that takes us into our testing. The details of our distribution total coliform are noted in our microbiological testing section. Our in-house operational testing is average to what we've seen in previous years, as well as the organic and organic parameters.
Similar to Beachburg, we are on a 3-year rotation for lead sampling, so we had tested for that last year and will not be doing that this year or next year. THMs at the end of 2024, the running annual average is 99.5 micrograms per liter, and our HAAs are 54.8 micrograms per liter, so over the half MAC, but not quite at our MAC yet. With our municipal drinking water license, we have the same additional samples required as Beachburg to test for backwash residual water, though in the case of Cobden, we're not actually releasing that to the natural environment, so we're able to kind of forego doing that testing because we process it at the sewage plant. We also have additional sampling required with a harmful algal bloom plan. So because we have a history of that on Muskrat Lake, we are required to sample on a weekly basis from June to October. And the results of the 25 samples collected showed none in our raw or treated water. So though we may have blooms on Muskrat Lake, we're not experiencing it in our treatment facility because of the depth of our intake. Looking at major maintenance that was completed last year, we had the sludge tank cleaned, same as Beachburg. We did purchase some stock distribution parts for the repairs across Whitewater region, not just specific to Cobden, sorry. We had some flow meter maintenance done. We had some pump kits purchased and distribution chlorine analyzers purchased to alleviate some of our sampling requirements. We also had our Pass 8 bulk tank cleaned and inspected with gaskets replaced. And then some PLC programming went on in response to that filter 1 backwash sequence and then pump. In our distribution system, we had one water main break on John Street. And we had some curb stop repairs and hydrant repairs. A hydrant was repaired on Main Street and Ross Street. We did experience 17 complaints in Cobden, most of them related to colored water in August as a result of the manganese in Muskrat Lake. Though there was one complaint for odor and one for a service leak that were addressed as well. And that takes us into Haley. So once again, we had a ministry inspection with a rating of 100%, one reaccreditation audit, no major or minor conformances identified, and one adverse water quality incident. The system doesn't have any water main breaks to report. The adverse event that was experienced was a sodium exceedance similar to Beachburg. We resampled and we did see elevated sodium once again, though Haley has a history of that on the 5-year cycle. We tend to see it around 60 milligrams per liter over the MAC of 20, just based on the groundwater available to us to use there. We did have one flow rate spike that you'll notice in July, and this was a result of low pressure events in the system, so we had ramped up production to restore pressure. And that takes us into our microbiological results. Once again, no E. coli or total coliforms in the system. Our operational testing is on par with previous years, as well as our inorganic and organic parameters. We did test for lead at Haley as well, and will not be doing that in the next 2 years going forward based on a reduced cycling. And that takes us into THMs. Virtually none experienced in Haley based on the water. There's no additional legislated samples required by this municipal drinking water license, and because of the size of the system, there's not much maintenance required, so we did have backup equipment purchased, but have not had to use or install it yet. And the 5 complaints are a result of low pressure in July, or later on throughout the summer months when demand was higher. And we can take any questions on those reports at this time.
Good. You don't want to add anything at this point? Perfect. Excellent. That is a lot of information all at once. And you did a very good job of going through those reports. Thank you so much. And for those people maybe in the public that might be watching this, the recommended process I would do is have the report in front of you while you're listening to the video, because you'll get it all from Kaylee then. Excellent. So I'm going to go back to our mover. Councillor Moore, any comments, questions on the reports as presented?
I do. I actually have 2. The first one is, I was surprised at the 78% capacity with Beachburg compared to Cobden. Does that seem high from other years, or is that because of the water main breaks?
The water main breaks definitely do contribute to that, but we do see more use out of Beachburg because we don't have any additional storage outside of the clear well. Whereas Cobden, we have our tower that has 900 cubic meters. That helps alleviate some of the system use.
Okay, that makes sense. So put up a tower. Okay, my second question. I'm just wondering if the contractors were finished yet with the upgrades that were going on last year.
I agree to that. Yeah, so it's ongoing. There has been delays during the construction due to what's the word I'm looking for? Sorry, supply chain issues. But they're ramping up next month or so, and it will be completed by the end of August.
Great, thank you. That's it for my questions.
Councillor Olmsted, my seconder.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Yeah, just a question regarding to the maximum daily flow. Deanna had mentioned for Beachburg, for instance, that 78% was allowable, even though the average daily flow is only 38% for Beachburg. What are the parameters for allowable? Somebody answer that one?
Any of the spikes that occur on startup, like when the pump starts, it causes turbulence to go through the flow meter and it sends a magnetic signal from one side to the other. So when you get turbulence off the start, whether it's a little bit of sediment in the line or air, it can skew that number a little bit, which can put it over the line. The pumps are set at the maximum allowable limit to go through. So anything under a minute is not reportable in that instance.
So in my estimation, like 100% is the capacity, and you're saying I think 78% is allowable. So is there a safety parameter built in there? Like it's only supposed to go maybe an 80% max, or am I reading that incorrectly?
Sorry, I'll just, do you understand? You got the, okay, Superintendent Nicholson.
So sorry, I think you're referring to, so there is a rated capacity that the plant can operate at averaged and daily, and that's 973 cubic meters.
Yeah.
And so the highest day, the maximum day was in June at 762 cubic meters. So that was like a single day where it reached the highest
spike, yeah.
the highest amount that I got to, which is typical during the summer. You typically see people watering lawns and those sorts of things. As well as you might, I don't think we had a water main break in June, so the month that this occurred in likely would have been potentially, I can look back to the data and confirm it with Kaylee, but it was likely due just to simply increased usage of water during the summer months, the warmer months.
Right, so any of these maximum dailies then, is it safe to say that these are one-offs? Like our averages are 38, 42, and 11%. So we're nowhere near capacity in any of these facilities, correct?
So as I mentioned, so that would be, that 78% would be a maximum daily flow that would have been seen, and specifically this was during June. We can look into the data a little bit further to see how many times it reached that sort of 78% throughout that month. But averaged over the year, you were in that 38 to 48%.
Right. I think part of the task force, the water task force, one of the recommendations was very detailed analysis of exactly what that kind of stuff means. So if it's a water main break, great, it's noted, it's communicated, and we know that that's the cause of some of these things. Great, thank you.
Good, and just because the number, or the word there kind of tripped a couple times in that discussion. When it says in your table here in the original report, it says maximum daily flow. It's not the maximum, it's just, that's the highest daily flow that was reported. The maximum flow would be the rated flow, right?
Yeah, that would be a total experience for the day based on our rated capacity.
Yeah, okay. Good. Is there another question coming from Councilor Olmsted?
Sorry, I just wanted everybody to have a visual.
Good. So the question in the discussion that you heard Councilor Olmsted talking to Superintendent Nicholson was about that 762 as an example. It averages 369. It hit 762 at one peak day in July. It can go as high as 973 as per the license. But the question from our Water Wastewater Task Force is that those peaks that we see, why are they happening? Is it indicating to something else? And I really think it's from a cost perspective. What does this indicate in terms of needed capital investment or increases in operating costs? Are we wasting or losing water? That kind of chemicals. So it's really being able to track that daily flow so that we can assess and draw conclusions from it. Now, is that fair, Councillor Olmsted?
Yeah, exactly.
Good.
Thank you.
I see that Manager of Public Works ready.
Yeah, it's that. In the actual reports of the actual plants, it does show tables by month, and it'll show what the average of that month. So, for example, that 78%, I can look down, I don't know if you have it handy, but it will show what for that month, what the average is. So it's likely there's one day it hit that, and then the average for the month is lower.
So let's bring up on the screen just it's page 102 in the PDF of it's page 6 of the Aqua report. We keep going down a little bit more. It would be, oh, you just passed it. Page 6 at the top right, I'll say page 6. Yeah, right there. Sorry. Up one more graph. So I think we're in monthly. That's Cobden. So this is Cobden, for instance, but we were speaking of Beachburg. But you'll see the dark blue line with the diamonds at the top. That's the rated capacity of the plant by day and also averaged over the year. The darker blue in the middle with the squares, that would be showing like the peak day experienced during that month. So a one-time peak. And then the lighter blue line would show the average that was experienced in that month. So when we think about sort of that middle square lines, the reason why we bring that forward is because on that specific day, that's how much of the capacity was used during that day, and that's one of the numbers you really think of. The average is sort of the larger number to think of for the plant, but the daily one really is what's going to limit you on how much water you can actually pull on any given day. So that's the reason why we mention it. It is important to understand that becomes your limiting factor of what people can use and what's available. Does that help clarify things a bit more? No. And so, sorry. My point was going to be that to your comment about understanding the reasoning behind it. So you can see here in the Cobden trending, we see in this one a little bit of an increase in September and October, and that might have been related to the water main break that we experienced, and flushing as well. That would be a big one. And then we have also seen in Beachburg traditionally some seasonal increases during the warmer summer months. And that potentially could be due to lawn, like sprinkling and watering and those sorts of things, and gardens. And so understanding, you'll see fluctuations in that. We might have a wet year. You don't necessarily see that number quite as high. You have a dry year, the number tends to go up because people tend to water and sprinkle more. So.
Excellent, thank you. And before I see Councillor Moore here, Councillor Olmsted, do you have anything to follow up? You're fine now? Good, Councillor Moore.
Now that you've shown us that graph, just wondering if fire was taking a lot of water, would it show up on this graph? Like maybe there was a large fire in October, that's why with the flushing that there was a lot of water use? Just wondering.
In October of last year, we performed semi-annual flushing. So those flow rates are comparable to us using additional flow through the hydrants.
Okay, so does anybody track fire then when they use our hydrants? And how much water we use?
So, yes, we don't actually track the actual usage of the actual water being used for firefighting, but you would see if there was a fire in one of the months, the max day for that month would be high.
Okay, understand, thanks.
Good, any other questions? Yes, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you very much. Just to you, Lane, you had mentioned about a completion date of August for the Beachburg plant, and I'm just wondering if we might get an update, say, in June, maybe mid-June, see where we're at with the project and make sure that we are still on track and there will be no surprises. Thank you.
Yeah, we will do that.
Thank you.
Perfect. Excellent. And I'd love to see the plant once it's done.
Yeah.
So going to add that to our list. Any other questions? No, an important topic, and I think these types of questions and going through it to understand it is important. We know how expensive these systems are, and for us to have a better appreciation on use and future use, predicting future use and what we have to invest, this is exactly what we need. So thank you to staff on this one. If there's no other questions, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor? It's carried. Thank you. Excellent. We'll move on to the next item, which is our drinking water quality management system endorsement, which I know Superintendent Nicholson is going to tell us exactly what that means. The recommendation is that the Council of the Township of Whitewater Region authorize the Mayor and Chief Administration Officer to sign the Township of Whitewater Region's Drinking Water Quality Management System, DWQMS, operational plan, commitment, and endorsement. A mover and a seconder, please. Moved by Councillor Moore, seconded by Councillor Trim. Back to Superintendent Nicholson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So drinking water quality management system, also known as DWQMS, is a complementary item thing that we use alongside legislative and regulatory framework under this Safe Drinking Water Act to ensure that the township provides safe and reliable drinking water to residents. So it's our internal way of our internal quality management system to ensure that we are following all the rules. And one of the things that is required is an endorsement by council, the owner, of the operational plan that has developed for our system. So the licensing program that's run by the Ministry of Environment requires a number of items to ensure safe drinking water. And the first one is our Drinking Water Works permit. We also have a permit to take water. And a valid permit to take water has to be in place at all times. The township also must have an accredited operational plan, which satisfies the requirements of the ministry's DWQMS requirement. And so this operational plan is the operating authority's quality management system. And this operational plan is accredited, what's the word I'm looking for, is drawing a blank. We have an external auditor that comes in and reviews the plan annually. And then the last item is our financial plan. And on a side note, we are actually in the process of developing our financial plan, which is, like I said, one of the items that goes along into our municipal drinking water license, and that is anticipated to be arriving in the next month or so, and will be brought forward to council for your consideration as well. So as far as the DWQMS goes, it is basically it's the written plan that Aqua follows. There's a plan, do, check, and improve sort of way that the quality management system operates. And as I mentioned, there's a commitment and endorsement aspect to the operational plan, and that was last brought forward to council in 2023. And since that time, Aqua has made several updates to the operational plan. And I'll pass it over to Kaylee just to give you a brief overview of what changes Aqua has made to the plan.
Thank you. So this plan was last updated in January of 2025, ahead of our external audit schedule, which took place in February of 2025. Changes were a result of internal and external audits findings across Aqua. So not just necessarily related to our facilities, but in general. So aside from having notes from auditors, and that way we also receive best managed practices from the ministry that we can incorporate into our plans, or if there's any updates to regulations or our drinking water works permit to take water, or a municipal drinking water license, we'd have a change to our operational plan to reflect that. Changes that were made in this instance were an update to Aqua's mission statement, as well as additions to retention time and the tables listed in section 5 of your operational plan in regards to timelines holding documents for 10, 15, or 5 years. Aqua also just restructured, so our operators' roles and positions have changed, and we've reflected that in the operational plan in section 9 and 10. We made notes based on ministry recommendations to define what an OIT can do and what they're limited to not do. Our emergency response plan has changed to include the word corporate and be more of an umbrella to Aqua, as well as updating our documents onto how we can remain objective as internal auditors, since a lot of the times we're auditing our own work. All that to say is that because we have made major changes, a requirement of the operational plan is to have you guys endorse it, which is what we're looking to do today.
And so I'll make one last note that, so while the DWQMS document it's an internal document, and it's not required to be made fully public in order to safeguard our drinking water system. So this plan includes emergency response measures and those sorts of things that are important to not necessarily be shared widely. So while council is endorsing it, the plan isn't actually published for the public to be made available. So the next steps here are to have the mayor and CAO provide Aqua. There's an operational plan sign-off sheet, and once that's signed off, it'll be provided back to Aqua to be included in the operational plan. And that's everything. Are there any questions?
Thank you. Just one point of clarification before I open the floor up. The financial plan that was articulated there, we also known that as the 10-year rate study, or is that different from the 10-year rate study?
Well, it's different. They are developed in together, so it's the same data going into it. It's one really is just outlining what the financials are of the system and the requirements to meet that, whereas the rate study actually sets the rates for the users and so on. But yes, they are developed side by side at the same time, but they are two separate documents.
Perfect. I just wanted to make sure people could orientate. Good. Questions? Movers, Councillor Moore.
Well, one question, one comment. Is this, what we're talking about now, is this to be done annually?
So this re-endorsement generally occurs when a change has been made or when it's a new council comes on. That's generally when the re-endorsements, we seek the re-endorsement.
Okay, but in keeping with then the chief executive officer and the mayor signing, then does it come to council at any time so we're aware that they've signed?
I think I'll jump in there. This is its process. So anytime we're asked to re-sign it, whether that's the beginning of the term or after a significant change, we can't sign it without the endorsement of council.
Okay, thank you. That answered my question.
And your comment?
Just to say thank you to Aqua for the recent water main breaks, especially the one last fall, that you were out all night in the cold, windy weather. So express our sincere thank you to your workers, and it was a job well done. Thank you.
Thank you. And our seconder, Councillor Trim. No questions. Any other questions or comments from any member of council? Okay, seeing none, we'll call for a vote. All those in favor? It's carried. Thank you. Next item. 9.5, which is the Cobden Wastewater Treatment Plant Annual Report. The recommendation of the Council Township Whitewater Region receive this report for information purposes as it relates to the Cobden Wastewater Treatment Plant operations. A mover and a seconder, please. Moved by Councillor Moore, seconded by Councillor Olmsted. Back to Superintendent Nicholson.
Thank you, Mayor Nicholson. So this report provides results of the 2024 annual operations at the Cobden Wastewater Treatment Plant. And so the Cobden wastewater treatment plant is subject to the requirements of an environmental compliance approval. And this ECA requires that the operator of the plant, Aqua, provides a summary report to the Ministry of Environment on an annual basis. So as long as the same with our water plants, Aqua is the operating authority at the wastewater treatment plant. So I'll provide one statistic that we're always eager to hear for Cobden's wastewater treatment plant was the annual average daily flow. Again, that's sort of the limiting factor that we think of when we're talking about capacity and how much is available to the users. So in 2024, the annual average daily flow was 772 cubic meters per day, where the ECA's rated capacity is 1,000 cubic meters. So that represents 77.2% of the plant's capacity averaged over the year. In the report, I've shown the previous year's annual average flow just for tracking purposes, just to be able to see how it changes year over year. So you'll see those statistics included in the table in the report. But as far as that, I'll pass over back to Kaylee to give you guys some more highlights of the operations of the plant in 2024.
Thank you. Our wastewater plant is a little bit different in respect to our inspection schedule. You'll notice that our water plants are inspected on an annual basis, and our sewage plant is going to be on more of a 5-year schedule. So that's why nothing was reported for this facility last year. We had a really good year that we had no non-compliance events, and that we did experience 5 community complaints and 1 abnormal discharge. It wasn't a bypass or an overflow, but we did have a biosolid spill on Highway 17, as well as 1 main blockage and 4 sewer lateral blockages. Because of the lack of snow and precipitation last year, we did not experience any kind of stress on the plant in the spring during the regular freshets that we've seen in the past. We also did not receive any leachate or imported sewage in the form of septage. It's important to note we don't have a facility at this point to receive that kind of waste. Looking at our effluent quality, the parameters that are required to be tested for are carbonaceous, biological, chemical, oxygen demand. That one's a real mouthful. Our total suspended solids, our total ammonia nitrogen, and our geometric monthly mean of E. coli all were within our ECA limits, though we did have 1 instance where total phosphorus hit the objective. So objectives are more of an operational target for us to kind of investigate what's gone on and how we can improve our test results. And all of these test results from the monthly averages are detailed, I believe, in page 8 to 11, if there's any questions on those. Our ECA also requires us to provide a monitoring schedule and report on any deviations to that schedule. Most of the deviations experienced last year were as a result of an influence sampler failure. Due to the colder weather, it blocked the line and we weren't able to collect the sample on the prescribed day. Or it was a result of a stat holiday. So rather than us being on site to start the sampler to follow our schedule of Thursday, we had to start it on a Tuesday or a Monday to get the samples out in time. Looking at our operational issues last year, we did have some significant maintenance performed on the membrane trains at the manufacturer's request. I don't know if Lane and Deanna want to speak to that a little bit more after I'm finished, but we had all the cassettes pulled and inspected and cleaned. We also made adjustments after the results of the inspection to reduce flow rates and increase the runtime experienced by the membranes, trying to reduce the stress that they're under. We've increased the maintenance that's done on a daily basis. So typically the filters were cleaned on a weekly basis from 2021 to 2023 when we were operating. That's changed to daily in 2024. So a CEB is a chemically enhanced backwash, similar to if you have a water softener system or a filter at home, how we run water backwards. That occurs here, and then we use chemicals such as sodium hypochlorite to remove any organic material off the fibers, or citric acid to remove any inorganic material that's maybe fouling the fibers. We also revised our in-house CIP procedure, and that's a clean in place. So similar to a backwash, but we let the chemicals sit and soak and actually saturate the fibers to remove anything that's been building up on them. In conjunction with the township, we also performed a sampling program from July 23rd to August 16th of last year, and that was kind of targeting excess BOD in the system. So BOD, or biological chemical oxygen demand, is important to this facility that we can have a max of 250 milligrams per liter experienced, and we've been seeing instances where it's been over that average experienced in the raw influent. So we took sampling seriously over kind of 3 separate intervals from 6 to 12 and 12 to 6 p.m. and 6 p.m. to midnight to try to target when we are experiencing that higher BOD and how we can move forward to rectify that. And based on the results, Deanna has been working on creating a bylaw, which I'm sure you guys have been exposed to. Our effluent quality summary, I've already kind of touched on this, where we had the objective exceedance for total phosphorus. To correct that, we adjusted our wasting volume, so excess phosphorus was removed from the system. Moving into the spill that happened in November on the highway at the corner of Astrolab, we estimate about 100 kilograms of biosolids had spilt on the road, and the cleanup occurred within an hour, where it was shoveled and the vac truck was on site to remove any lingering biosolids by spraying the roadway as well as vacuuming it up and vacuuming any storm sewers. So there was no waterways affected by this spill, and it wasn't raining at the time, so it was contained. Looking at maintenance that was performed last year at the sewage plant, we had a lot of blower maintenance, whether it was an oil change, a filter change, a new bearing. We had the Morton Street lift station vacked and inspected to remove any grease that's built up on the walls. We also had the pumps pulled in service there to remove any rags that are built up in the impeller affecting the flow. And then there were some emergency maintenance and repairs in regards to SCADA programming, some laterals that were damaged on Gould Street as well as Pembroke Street, and 38 Pembroke Street. We did have one flow meter that was not able to be calibrated successfully last year, with the replacement scheduled to happen this year. There was no unauthorized or authorized modifications or alterations made to the system. Those are required to be reported to you guys as well as the ECA. Looking at the sludge that was generated last year, in previous years we had removed liquid biosolids based on how the facility was designed, where we moved completely into, processed biosolids. So there was no sludge removed, and approximately 4,100 cubic meters that was processed by the facility's centrifuge, working out to 463,000 kilograms of biosolids that was made its way to the landfill here on site. There's trending available on those numbers I just spoke to on page 18, and that takes us into the summary of the complaints. All were related to a sewer backup. In the instances, a lot of repairs were made in conjunction with the township, or the sewer main was inspected above and below the residence to ensure that there was flow and it was localized to that unit. And if it was localized to that unit, a plumber was contacted or a vac truck was contacted to make the repairs. Throughout the rest of the appendices, there's a 2025 sampling schedule, details of the spill that I already spoke to, and details of where you can find specific information in the report. And we can take any questions at this time.
Excellent, thank you. And I'll go to my mover first, Councillor Moore.
No questions, thank you.
Good. Seconder, Councillor Olmsted.
No questions, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Yes, Councillor Tabbert.
Just reading the reports, 9.2, emergency maintenance and repairs. What do you mean, like, how do you get rags into this? It says removed rags, and you did that a couple times. What is, like, rags get
Flushed.
Yes, so unfortunately, a lot of members of the public aren't, privy to the 3 Ps that should be flushed: pee, poo, and paper. So we do have things that aren't supposed to be flushed or advertised as flushable that make their way into the sewer system. And those kind of regs are what gum up our pumps.
And I can make one comment that it's actually one of the things we added in, it's included in the new sewer use bylaw is actually a provision that very clearly states that items such as sometimes labeled as flushable wipes of any kind are not to be flushed because they do clog pumps and cause a lot of headache for operators. So that's one of the items that's in the new bylaw. Repeats.
And it might say flushable. Literally, you can flush it down, but then it clogs up the system. So, good. Any other questions or comments on this? Good. Again, thank you so much for a very detailed report. You know, again, we know how important these very expensive and high level of service, or high level of services, how important they are to the community. So it's important for us to take this time to review it. So I appreciate that. No other comments, then we'll call for a vote. All those in favor? And it's carried. Thank you. Good. Next item. And thank you, Kayla. Did I say that right? Kaylee. Sorry, Kaylee.
That's okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate you spending your time. Excellent. We'll go on to 9.6, which is the contract extension for Miller Waste Systems. Now, I'll note just before I read the resolution that this is a repeat of a resolution we had at our last council meeting. There's been a change in the number inside the resolution. It was a misprint. So we're just going to redo the complete thing because the misprint is pretty substantial. The recommendation is that Council of Township Whitewater Region amend Resolution 2025-5269 passed on March 5th, 2025 to the following, that the Council of the Township Whitewater Region approve a one-year extension, year 6, April 1st of 2025 to March 31st, 2026 to Miller Waste Services Incorporated at a total cost of $370,845.90, inclusive of non-refundable HST. And I need a mover and a seconder, please. Councillor Moore and, sure, Deputy Moore, Deputy Mayor. Deputy Moore. Who's going to take this one? Superintendent Nicholson, thank you.
So this report has been brought back forward. So there's no changes actual to the content of the report. All of the facts and figures are correct in the bottom. It was a transcription error on my part, which I apologize, but it was in our favor. So the new amount, 370, the proper amount, 370,845.90 is the corrected amount. It was previously misreported as 428.57, so it's actually in our favor of 57,726. So that's the only change. Everything else is the same.
Excellent, thank you. The mover, Councillor Moore, any questions or comments?
No, just glad we caught the error. Thank you.
Good. Deputy Mayor? Good. Anyone else? Any comments? Seeing none, we'll call for the vote. All those in favor? Carried. Thank you and appreciate. I think it was an important enough error that to bring it back forward. I think that was excellent. Good. Next item is 9.7, gravel supply. The recommendation is that the Council of Township Whitewater Region 1 approve the award of tender 2025-08 gravel crushing to McCrae Excavating Limited at a cost of $239,136, inclusive of non-refundable HST. And 2, approve the standing offer from Dave Bromley for the granular supply of 35,000 tons of granular A and 15,000 tons of granular B from the Bromley pit at a cost of $117,024, inclusive of non-refundable HST. Mover and a seconder, please. Councillor Moore, Councillor Olmsted. Manager Public Works?
Yes, thank you. Since 2020, the township has been applying approximately $100,000 of granule to various roads. I'll show in the report, I've listed since 2020, each year's kilometers. And thank you to Councillor Trim to point out my error. In the 4 roads that are listed is Pleasant Valley Road from La Posse Road to Powers Road, and also Pleasant Valley Road from Powers Road to Fletcher, The mistake was Oren Road, and that was done last year, and I apologize for the copy and paste error from the map. It's actually Kerr Line, the gravel portion, and then Acres Road from Mineview Road to almost at Jeffrey. Tender 2025-08 was released on January 25th, and 2 addendums were issued. 10 companies picked up the package that was advertised on Bidingo and the municipal website. The tender specified 35,000 of granular A and 15,000 of granular B. The closing date, following the closing date, the public tender was open in presence of township staff and also one representative from Dual Construction. 4 bids were received, ranging from 265,000 to 363,000. Staff analyzed each bid and found that no errors were found. And additionally, staff contacted 4 local pits within the township to receive a standing offer for the raw product to allow crushing. And the bids came in from $2.30 to $6 per ton for the raw material. And results from the purchasing from the Bromley pit and also crushing from McCrae Excavating Inc., the total price for granular A is $7.43 and $6.41 for granular B. With the public engagement, we do include the gravel road listing and map on our website, and also we include it in our current. With the financial implications, the product is for gravel roads and capital projects. The amount spent goes into the township's inventory and then withdrawn when we use it for each road, and is assigned for each GL for the road and also for each capital project. Thank you.
Excellent, thank you. And I'll go to the mover, Councillor Moore.
I have no questions. Thank you.
Councillor Olmsted.
No question, thank you.
Any questions or comments from any other member of council? Good. Just one. In terms of this 35,000 tons and 15,000 tons, can you forecast how many years' supply would that normally be?
We do have some over from last year. Typically, it was analyzed that's the amount we would use for our gravel roads. The gravel roads is approximately about 17,000, and then the remaining is for our capital projects, but it is estimated about 35,000 of granular A for the gravel roads and capital for 2025. There will be remaining leftover because it is approximately by tons, and we do have an inventory that from again, as I said before, from last year. So there will be some remaining inventory.
Perfect. Does that trigger any other questions or comments? No? Good. Seeing none, we'll call for a vote. All those in favor? And it's carried. Thank you. Good. I'll turn this back. Are you guys okay if we do one more and take a break? It's good. So the next one is the award for consultant for asset management plan update. The recommendation is the Council of Township Whitewater Region approve the award of the 2025 asset management plan update to Dillon Consulting Limited at an upset limit cost of $45,000 inclusive of non-refundable HST. Can I get a mover and a seconder, please? Sure. Moved by Councillor Tabbert, seconded by Councillor Trim. And this is going to the treasurer. Thank you.
Thank you. So this report goes back to, I know we've all been hearing lots about our assets and the asset management plan regulations. So Ontario Regulation 58817, which is the asset management regulation for the Infrastructure and Jobs Prosperity Act in 2015, it came into effect on January 1st, 2018, and it requires municipalities to create these plans to plan for the future of our assets and the replacement of those assets. So in a quick timeline, back in 2019, on July 1st, was whenever this council approved our strategic asset management policy, which set out the framework for all the asset management plans to be created in the future. July 21st, 2022 is whenever our asset management plan we're currently using was approved. It actually included a levels of service category, and it included all of our assets, so it actually met our 2024 deadline at the same time. So with that one creation, we actually met 2 deadlines at the same time, which was fantastic. So like I said, in July 1st, 2024, the one just passed, it was to include all non-core assets. Our original in 2022 was just to put core assets, which is our roads, bridges, culverts, water sewer systems, those type of things. The non-core assets are parks and recreation facilities, smaller stuff that doesn't, vehicles, those type of things that are not technically classified as a core asset. So now for 2025, there's a new piece that has to look into the asset inventory itself, review the actual levels of service, and establish what council and the public wants to see as the level of service going forward, whether we continue at the current level of service or create a new proposed level of service. And then in doing so, figure out the life cycle management of the assets, as well as determine a 10-year financial strategy to fund those assets. So there's a lot of work involved in creating this plan, and that's why we're recommending that we go with Dillon Consulting to perform this update of the plan. So the township's current asset management plan, prepared by the Public Sector Digest, so the PSD, was approved by council in 2022, and it met all the deadlines up to July 1st, 2024. To prepare ahead of this deadline, staff have been working diligently to update asset lists and review all of the assets, make sure everything is up to date, as well as going through and doing training in other areas. So we have investigated the cost of hiring a consultant to aid in this process. Proposals were requested from 3 consultants, including a consultant that did our plan last time, PSD. Based on the submissions that we received, staff recommend awarding Dillon Consulting as per section 23F of our procurement policy negotiations. So Dillon Consulting is an employee-owned Canadian consultation firm that's been providing services in engineering, planning, environmental sciences to clients over 25 years, or 75 years, sorry, developing asset management plans since 2024. They are also the consulting firm that we have awarded for the building condition assessments. So we'll be working hand in hand with them whenever they create that, which is a integral part of the actual asset management plan update. So they will be coming up with the values for those building condition assessments and tying that directly into our asset management plan. And they've also worked with us in a bunch of other areas, including fire station and municipal garage updates for building condition assessments that were done back in 2020, as well as updates to other financial aspects of those BCAs for this term. As a note, on the staff side of what has been kind of going on the asset management update, because July 1st is a very close deadline to come up for, they have initiated through their timeline that they will be able to meet that deadline and actually give us a little bit of time in between that point, which is fantastic. And they also have provided us with different workshops for council to be involved more with the whole side. So they will create the survey that will go out to the public because there is a public consultation area to this update that requires consultation to come out and talk about what the public would like to see as the level of service from the township itself. And so they will do a training workshop with council on the findings of that survey out to the public. And then they will also do a wrap-up final of their findings once they actually present the report at the completion of the asset management plan before it's adopted and then sent off to the ministry. I just wanted to note too that we are actually got reviewed and accepted into the Amp It Up program, which is through MFOA, and it provides 30 hours of free, and I say free as in taxpayer-free consulting, through a arm's length consulting firm that has provided us with some updates and areas of where to improve our current asset management plan and work forward to the this update. So we've been utilizing that as a one piece to kind of mitigate the expenses that come in with this update through these consultants and better enable us to assist the consultants in creating a better product for when we're done. We're hoping that with the creation of this asset management plan, it'll be able to much easier guide council's decisions going forward to the rehabilitation and renewal of assets. So under the total cost, you'll notice that the cost put forward in the proposal was $40,296.96 inclusive of non-refundable HST. The approved 2025 capital budget included $40,000 for this, and that's funded through OSIF, the Ontario Community Infrastructure Fund. There's an additional portion to have the workshop for the levels of service piece. Should council be accepting of that, we would add that in at the cost of between $3,000 to $4,300 HST, which is where the approved upset limit of $45,000 comes from. This small overage would come through the modernization reserve, which still has funds remaining. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Treasurer. And I'll go to Councillor Tabbert first. As a mover.
Nothing, thank you.
No questions. And Councillor Trim as a seconder.
Yes, I'm losing a thread here, and I apologize. Earlier, we awarded a contract for the arena facility inspection or condition assessment. How come that isn't included in this? There are two separate streams going on here, and I've lost it. Sorry.
So I can answer that. So the one that was awarded earlier tonight was for structural assessment. So they actually look at the actual structures of the buildings themselves, not the actual components within the building. It's just the shell of the building, the structure. So we've reached out to other consultants, and Dylan did not supply a tender or an RFP into that process. So hence why they were not part of that process. We are having Dylan, however, do the building condition assessments. So they look at things like the pads, the brink boards, all the components of the building themselves. So it's a bit of a different study. It's not just the structure, it's everything inside. And the structural assessment is more to say how long the building has to last. The building condition assessment is more of a value of the current state of the building and what it needs to come up to date for that value, if that makes sense. That's what's going to tie into our asset management plan.
So it will, the report or the contract we awarded earlier, the results will be part of this?
That's correct. Yeah, it'll all tie together.
Okay.
They just weren't the winners of that bid. And so that's why we're hoping that Dylan, who's currently doing the building condition assessments, will have all of that information done prior to them starting the work for our asset management plan. And then at that point in time, since we've put a deadline of May 15th for the structural assessments, it will also tie into the asset management plan, and everything will roll out all at the same time. So we'll be able to compile a lot of the studies that we're currently doing and have our asset management plan as up to date as possible, that whenever we look from one document to another, those values all coincide with each other, rather than having a whole lot of documents that have different ranges and different years and different ending times. Where luckily we've kind of channeled everything to happen in the same year, and everything will be of the same date and vintage, so then we continually update those amounts, and it'll be make it a much easier process for updating our asset management plan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That explanation was very helpful to me.
Perfect. Excellent. And any other questions? Members of council? Okay, seeing none, we'll call for a vote. All those in favor? It's carried. Thank you. And with that, we will take a very short recess, please, and then we'll get back to it. And welcome back to the Township Whitewater Region's regular council meeting for Wednesday, March 19th. It's 6:59 and we'll call ourselves back to order. The next item on the agenda is item number 10, which is notices of motion. And I'm going to start on this side of the room to make sure. Is there any notices of motion coming from members of council? Any notices of motion over here? Seeing none. I'll just ask for an update on outstanding notices of motion.
So we still have the two pending notices of motions. The primary care and Watchhorn and Anderson motions.
Excellent, thank you. And it moves us on to item number 11, which is correspondence. Now, the first item, A, is a very, very fulsome resolution that has been prepared and debated at the county level. And with council's indulgence, I will not read the 2.5 pages. Although, if you would like me to, I will. But if there's anyone who would like me to read the full resolution, I would encourage any member of the public to take a look at it. It sets the conditions on the circumstances we're surrounding right now with U.S. tariffs. Therefore, I will just review the be it resolved portion. Good. Okay. I see nothing from the council, so I will continue. Therefore, be it resolved that the Township of Whitewater Region supports other Ontario municipalities that have passed resolutions urging the Canadian and Ontario governments to take all the necessary measures to protect Ontario's interests in trade negotiations and to ensure municipalities are included in a coordinated response. And further, that the Township of Whitewater Region supports efforts to remove barriers that limit municipalities' ability to reject U.S. suppliers in procurement while ensuring fair and transparent trade practices. And further, that the Township of Whitewater Region continues to support local businesses, industries, and workforce through the efforts of the Economic Development Department, including a Buy Local, Buy Canadian campaign, and a review of the Township of Whitewater Region's procurement options that support the Canadian economy. And further, that this resolution be forwarded to the Eastern Ontario Wardens Caucus, the Federation of Canadian Municipalities, the Association of Municipalities of Ontario, the Rural Ontario Municipal Association, local municipalities of Renfrew County, and relevant federal and provincial representatives. Can I get a mover and a seconder for this? Moved by the Deputy Mayor and seconded by Councillor Bell. Excellent. And I will then offer the floor back. We've talked about this in some length, but I'll offer the floor back to the Deputy Mayor if she want to make any comments regarding the motion on the floor.
Thank you, Mayor. I read through it twice, and I support this motion. I have nothing else to add to it. Thank you.
Excellent. Councillor Bell, any comments you want to add? Excellent. Any other member of council? Yes, Councillor Olmsted, please.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. At county level, was there any discussion regarding provincial taxation or tariffs? So interprovincial, was there any discussion with respect to that? I don't see that as part of the motion.
No, but it was a discussion item, and I know that staff are looking at how do we support this. It's mostly being managed by FCM and AMO, with the majority being FCM trying to influence those federal level provincial trade barriers that are federal in nature and not provincial. But we can take a note of that as well and bring that back up again. If
sure, and there's some things maybe I'll take offline and discuss that, just some thoughts on perhaps ways we can break down some of those barriers as well that would it would enhance further local trade.
Which type of barriers? Provincial ones?
Yes.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect, excellent, noted. Yes, please give us a list and we can use that to attack. Our economic development officer can champion that. I think they're meeting regularly now on this, so we can also funnel it up through that.
Great, thank you.
Good. Any other comments, questions? I'll open it up to staff, just because it is a notice on the floor, a notice of motion. Is there any input or consideration from a staff perspective on this motion?
I would just inform council that as recently as in the last couple weeks, we did connect the chief administrative officers with finance and economic development staff, so led by the County of Renfrew. So they are implementing different initiatives. Just think local, you may have seen that, and they have a website set up. So they did just issue a sort of a digital news letter, if you will. So we're going to continue to support their strategies and initiatives, which is kind of a regional approach. And so I've connected back with our staff to reshare their post and just indicate to the public here that we support and promote their initiatives. So where we've expressed where we could help at the county level, regionally, just let us know and we'll support that. Thanks.
Councillor Moore.
Something that just came to mind here. We do have a lot of businesses in our area. I'm just wondering if we should be starting to track some of these or all of these businesses to know where we stand should the bottom fall out of the market and some of our local companies are finding it tough. It would be nice to have a list of who to contact or who all is involved and perhaps how many employees would help too. Just a suggestion.
No, and that's perfect. I'll let the CAO amplify, but I can confirm that there's 3 groups working in tandem right now with our local businesses, and not just ours, but on a regional basis. The Chamber of Commerce, Community Futures, that's a federal, and of course our Economic Development committee, or not committee, but our Economic Development Office out of the county. They are doing surveys with local businesses and encouraging them to share impacts to create that ability to communicate effectively as easily as possible. And I think we're involved with our own Economic Development Officer.
I don't think I would add too much to what the mayor has said, only to say that we did communicate with some key stakeholders locally, directly, and so we are in connection with some of them. And the importance here is that there's a one point of contact. We don't want to create a bunch of windows, and which may be viewed as sort of hurdles. We'd rather they all go to one spot, which I would suggest would be the County of Renfrew ECDEV team. And noting to the county team that we're here to support, and where we can, they should connect with us and connect our businesses with us. Thanks so much.
Perfect. And Councillor Trim?
Yes, I was just thinking, do we have any procurement policies that we may need to amend or temporarily even with respect to purchasing for the municipality and ensuring that it's we can support the local and more widely Canadian economy first? Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thanks. I'll get the CAO to step in.
Yeah, I would say that the matter of procurement is sort of being tested, if you will, with other municipalities in Ontario and maybe across the nation, if you will. I don't think, in my view, we've reviewed preliminarily what procurements we have currently that might be affected with the proposed tariffs, if you will. But I think we'll wait for the county initiatives. They are examining this as well, and other municipalities in Ontario, larger ones. I've listened to a podcast recently where the City of London's looking at this. So I don't think we're going to spearhead this. I think it's fair to say that we could follow the leadership of other larger municipalities in that initiative. So we're tracking it, and when the time is right, we'll come back to council with some initiatives if that's the case. Thanks.
Yeah, and it does state in the resolution that ability to reject U.S. suppliers in procurement while ensuring fair and transparent trade strategies. So I know that there are other international agreements that we have to make sure we don't not live up to if we are rejecting U.S. So, and that is being looked at the federal and provincial levels. So, noted. We're not sure yet. As soon as we know, we'll be able to, we'll be advised. Good. Any final questions on this? Okay, seeing none, we'll call for a vote. All those in favor? And it's carried. Thank you. Next, information or correspondence item requiring direction is a recommendation with respect to a request for municipal support The recommendation is the Council of Township Whitewater Region support ORPC's application to National Resources Canada under the Smart Renewables and Electrification Pathways Utility Support Stream Grant Program. Can I get a mover and a seconder to put it on the floor? So Councillor Moore, seconded by Deputy Mayor. Excellent. And I know this has to do with one of the boards that you are a member of there, Councillor Moore, so I'll get you to speak to this first.
Okay, thank you. This is something that came up a couple of months ago, and we've been discussing it for a while, but the whole idea of this, to continue on with this, is because the government is granting us money to do this, and they in turn also want the work done. So in order to get the work done from all the LDCs, local distribution, etc., they're offering this grant. So what this upgrade will do to our lines in our municipalities that have Otter River power is that we'll be able to look at them from the sky. And we'll be able to see where the outages are, we'll be able to see where the hot spots are, etc. So this is something that comes into emergency management across Ontario as well. So everybody wants this done. So all the small municipalities, such as that is functioned by Otter River Power, not necessarily Ontario Hydro, but Otter River Power, and there's 17 LDCs in Ontario, so they'll all be looking at this grant to upgrade their equipment, and therefore half the cost will be will filter down onto the users. Not everybody in the municipality, just the users, the same as the water. This is only affected by the people that use the system. Ontario Hydro will have their own, and I don't know where they stand on that, and that's not my job. So this is a good thing. We were looking forward to continuing on with this, and the government has approved us in our grant application, so it looks like it's a go. We're just looking for support from this council to proceed.
Excellent, thank you. And the seconder was the Deputy Mayor. Any additional comments?
Thank you. No, that is well said. Thank you very much.
Any questions from any other members of council? Okay, I see none, but I'll give the opportunity again because this did not come with a staff report. Is there any impacts or considerations that the staff want us to consider before we vote? Excellent, seeing none, I will call for the vote. All those in favor? And it's carried. Thank you. On the agenda, there are also 4 information items listed there, A through D. I won't speak to them unless there's an individual council member that would like to highlight, comment, or question about an item on there. Good, I see none. Next is announcements, and I'll start with the Deputy Mayor if there's any announcements.
Thank you very much. I do have one. During National Volunteer Week 2025, we come together to honor and celebrate the many ways volunteers make a lasting impact. The gift of time, skills, empathy, and creativity is vital to the inclusivity, resilience, and well-being of our communities. By uniting, offering support, and amplifying our collective efforts, volunteers greatly improve the quality that we all strive for. National Volunteer Week provides the perfect opportunity to recognize the incredible value volunteers bring and the positive influence they have on our municipality. We invite you to help us recognize a volunteer who has made a significant contribution to the quality of life in our region. Nominate someone who is one of the following categories: youth, which is 18 years of age or younger, adult, 19 years of age or older, and our lifetime achievement. Nominees must reside, be an elector, own a business, or attend a school in Whitewater Region. Their achievements and contributions must be volunteer-based and not for pay. Visit our website by April 8th, 2025 to submit your nominations today. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Looking forward to having lots of recommendations and nominations. Thank you. Councillor Bell, any announcements? Okay. Councillor Tabbert.
Yes, I have a few. The first is regarding our Whitewater Region Fire Department. In January of this year, the Whitewater Region Fire Department began a promotional process to fill the position of captain at Station 1 after the retirement of Captain Rick Vatan. Rick proudly served the Ross and Whitewater Region Fire Departments for over 30 years. The promotional process includes a written exam, the presentation of a training session, an interview, and finally, a tabletop fire scenario. Congratulations to Lieutenant Joel Bridges, who was promoted to captain after the retirement of Rick Vatan. Lieutenant John Malcolm, promoted to acting captain, and firefighter Shannon Spurl, promoted to lieutenant after the promotion of Joel Bridges. On March 5th, 2025, Lieutenant Wade Lumax retired after 28 years of dedicated service to the Beachburg and Whitewater Region Fire Departments. Firefighter Chris Parr will serve as acting lieutenant until the position is permanently filled. Thank you to all the applicants for their hard work and continued dedication to our fire department. And yes, I attended a Women's International Day event. It was held at the Butcher's Wife restaurant in Pembroke and was organized by the Upper Ottawa Valley Chamber of Commerce. There were 4 main guest speakers, and they were Melissa Gregoire from the Northern Credit Union, Jennifer Lehman, who is an author of and owner of Forward Thinking Marketing, Jody Primo, who's a lawyer, and Jan Preston from CNL. There was at least 70 ladies there, and it was noisy at times. And I will say that Wilderness Tours was one of the table sponsors, and it was a good event. And coming up, we have a breakfast at the Cobden Curling Club this Sunday from 8:30 to 11:30 a.m. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Tabbert. And I'll echo those congratulatory remarks for all of the firefighters promoted as a result of recent retirements. So congratulations to them. And just a shout out to firefighter Wade for 28 years, an incredible contribution to his community. And he can rest easy that he has done his part. So thank you for those announcements. I'll go Councillor Olmsted. Always following Councillor Tabbert.
I had Councillor Tabbert just go ahead and read mine, thanks. So I'm good, thank you.
Note to self, I'm going to change the order. Councillor Moore.
I do. Just for the people that are listening, spring load restrictions have come into effect Tuesday, March 11th, 2025 at 12:01 a.m. until Saturday, May 31st, 2025 at 12:01 a.m. There is a reduced load limits on roads that are under the Township of Whitewater region unless otherwise notified. Vehicle loads will be restricted to 5 tons per axle on the roads where signs have been erected. Please refer to Municipal 511 or for more detailed information on road restrictions, and a list of county roads subject to the reduced load limits can be viewed on the county system. Thank you for that. Tomorrow night I will be attending my 3rd PIC meeting with Renfrew County Roads, and I will be on there with Renfrew County and Horton Township from 5 until 7. Hopefully we'll have more information after this one. Okay, we'll leave it at that. And that's all I have. Next Tuesday, the 25th, there is a seniors meeting at Foresters Falls from 11 to 11:45, and there will be a representative from the Ministry of Transportation. Anyone who is getting close to having to renew their license at perhaps 80, etc., could attend and ask questions and find out what the new rules are, or current rules, just in case they're interested. Give the office a call and somebody will fix them up. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Good. Thank you. Councillor Trim. Perfect. Excellent. That moves us on to our next agenda item. which is number 13, which is bylaws. We have two bylaws, a bylaw and the confirmatory bylaw listed on our agenda. The recommendation is be it resolved that the bylaws listed on the March 19th, 2025 agenda be taken as read and passed. A mover and a seconder, please. Moved by the Deputy Mayor, seconded by Councillor Bell. Any additional comments? Final comments on this bylaw? Seeing none, we'll call for a vote. All those in favor? And it's carried. Clerk, just to confirm, there's no closed session?
Correct.
Good. And therefore, we are adjourned at 7:19 PM. Thank you, folks.